Welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet, the go-to podcast for parents with multiple kids, especially those with twins, triplets, or more, who are navigating the maze of modern family life and personal finance. Whether you're overwhelmed by education or retirement planning, parenting dilemmas, career transitions, or trying to define your purpose and plan, we're here to guide you with empathy, encouragement, and expertise. Hosted by Paul Fenner, founder of Tama Capital, a certified financial planner and parent to 4 kids, including a set of triplets. Our podcast is your ally in the quest for financial peace of mind, proving that money matters, but family comes first. Subscribe now and join our community of empowered parents at tamacapital.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Tama may retain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
What does comprehensive financial planning even mean? At Tama Capital, it means a family office where lifestyle planning such as retirement, college, portfolio management, and tax prep and planning are all under one umbrella. But it goes beyond numbers. We focus as much on the emotional side of financial planning as we do on the financial side. We get you. We understand your challenges of building a family, business or career, and a healthy life. We are devoted to wealth planning for families like yours because we are you. Learn how our family can help your family by visiting tamacapital.com. Hi, and welcome back. When things feel uncertain, really uncertain, have you noticed that you already know what's going to happen? You don't actually know, but it feels like you know. You have a story. And the news, the market data, the conversation at work, it all seems to confirm everything. Most beliefs are self-validating. Angry people look for problems and they find them everywhere. Happy people seek out smiles and they find them everywhere. And pessimists look for trouble and find it everywhere. Brains are good at filtering inputs to focus on what you believe. That's a quote from Morgan Housel, and it's one that I've been sitting with for this past week, given all the geopolitical and headlines making news this week or the last few weeks. And I keep coming back to this because I think the real danger isn't that the world is scary right now. There's always things going on. It's that when the world feels scary, we stop looking at the full picture. We only look for the parts that confirm what we already believe. And that's where expensive financial decisions get made. So I want to talk to you about 2 families that I've worked with. The first family, I'll call them the Garciases. They came to me a few years back during a rough stretch in the markets, as you can find and imagine, geopolitical tension, recession fears, the usual cocktail. David Garcia called me and said, "Paul, I've been doing my own research. Everything I'm reading says this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. We need to move to cash." I've heard that for years. But I asked him what resources had he been reading? What had he been watching? And he listed 6 sources. They were all from the same corner of the internet, of the same news cycle, same perspective, same forecast, same conclusion. He'd been reading for 2 weeks and had found a mountain of evidence. The problem was, he's the one that had built the mountain himself, brick by brick, stone by stone, looking for exactly what he wanted to find. We worked through it. He stayed invested, and his family is fine. The second family went in the other direction. We'll call them the Cameron family. They have 3 kids, busy lifestyle. They came in during the same period, but they had the opposite problem. They had been in the market for years, and things had gone generally well. And the Camerons were convinced this was just another blip on the radar screen. And most of the time it is. The market always comes back, they said, which is true. But they were using that truth to avoid looking at their actual situation. They had too much risk concentrated for the life that they were in today. And the market coming back idea was giving them permission not to deal with it. So you have two different families, two different stories, but stories that felt completely reasonable to both of them. Both stories were incomplete. And here's what I think about when I hear Morgan's quote. Neither the Garcias or the Camerons were or are irrational. They're human. We're all human. Our brains were doing exactly what brains do, finding evidence that confirms the story we've already written. And Therese and I aren't immune to this either. I mean, I catch myself doing this often, especially when things feel uncertain. I have to make sure I'm course correcting and reading something that I'll notice that doesn't agree with my thesis. I'm not trying to find the confirmation bias. Because when everything you're reading, watching, consuming makes perfect sense, you might not be reaching broadly enough. So here's what I've come to believe after 20 plus years of watching families and people make financial decisions. The story you're telling about your financial life is probably real, but it's also probably incomplete. When things are going well, we tend to attribute to our good decisions. When things feel scary, we start looking for reasons to confirm the fear. Neither story is the whole picture. The pessimist doesn't just see doom in the market. They've been carrying that doom for a long time, likely, in their financial situation. Maybe it started with their parents, who went through a hard period and never fully recovered. Maybe it started with a job loss. I mean, I remember when I went through one and how it changed how I saw risk for a long time afterward. The market headlines don't create the story. They just give it fresh material, new energy. But the opposite, the optimist, I should say, has the same problem but in reverse. They've told themselves that everything's going to work out. And like I've said earlier, they often do. But that story can also generate blind spots. They don't rebalance. They don't reassess. They mistake past performance for a future personal guarantee. So what do we need? We need both. But what we don't need is more information. We have plenty of information, saturated with information. What we need is a reason to look at the information we've been avoiding. My friend Carl Richards has this concept that he calls the behavior gap. And it's the distance between what we know we should do and what we actually do. And I think one of the main things that lives in this behavior gap is this. We stop looking at the full picture because the full picture becomes uncomfortable. A pessimist who examines their own resilience has to give up the comfort of that fear story. And an optimist who looks at their real risk exposure has to acknowledge that they may be more vulnerable than they thought. Both feel like losses. But here's the thing about confirmation bias and financial decisions. It's not just an intellectual problem. It has a real price tag. Families who panic sell during downtimes and wait for confirmation that it's safe to get back in, they just don't lose money on the way down. They're going to likely miss the recovery on the way up. And that's compounding working against you instead of for you. And the families who stay overconfident for too long, who keep telling themselves that the story will work out like it always has, sometimes they get lucky. Sometimes they don't. I'm not here to tell you what the market's going to do or that you shouldn't be worried because I genuinely don't know. And I've said this for years to all the families I work with. I don't know what the markets are going to do. But what I am saying is pay attention to what you're paying attention to. So here's something small that you can try this week. Think about the story you're telling yourself now about your financial situation. Not the headlines, your situation. Is it a fear story? Is it an everything's going to work out story? And then ask yourself, what evidence am I not looking at? You don't have to do anything with the answer, Just notice it. Sit with it. So spend some time. Spend 10 minutes this week reading one source that doesn't confirm your current view. And I'm not expecting this to change your mind, but I hope that you see what you find. The goal isn't to be an optimist or a pessimist. The objective is to be a realist who's at least trying to see the whole picture. Remember, money is a number, enough is a story. Make sure you're writing your own story. Now that you've made it to the end of another great conversation, are you looking for more? If so, head over to tamacapital.com, where you will find all of our conversations. Use the search feature to find the topic or guest you would love to learn more about. Also, don't forget to make someone else's day by sharing our show. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.